They're talking about, GMOs and organic farming, and the thing that rubbed me the wrong way was the repetition of widely spread misunderstandings. And you see this all the time. Okay. Um, it was when he contrasted when he contrasted organic farming with chemical-based farming. You hear that all the time. And it's based on a completely false understanding of what organic farming is. Okay? So I'm going to say the word organic. What do you think the word organic means? Think about it. I'll give you some time to think about it. Okay, it's enough time. So, therefore, organic farming should mean... Okay. There's logic there. Chances are you don't know what organic actually means. In order to know what organic means, you would have to have taken courses in chemistry. I believe at higher than a high school level, but I'm not sure about that exactly. You would at least have to have taken, a late high school course in chemistry. Organic means that it is a chemical that has the molecules of, or the elements of carbon and hydrogen in them. So gas, for example, is an organic compound because it consists of hydrocarbons. The reason that the term organic is chosen is because it refers to the basis of life. We are carbon-based life. Some Isaac Asimov novels propose the idea of silicon-based life. But the bond that forms between carbon and hydrogen specifically is very powerful due to the way that the electrons are organized around. And I mean, I'm using a somewhat deprecated model. It's not exactly how we understand things anymore. But nonetheless, the term organic, I mean, there's this whole quantum, physics concept. We've got, we used to think of things very, but what we did actually was we took Newton's concept of the cosmos and we shrunk it down, and we said that that's the way atoms must be, right? So we came up with this model where there's a center of gravity, and you've got the electrons, circling around the center. In the center, you have your neutrons and your protons, and you have your electrons cycling around it like you would have a planet cycling around a sun or a star, right? We know today that it's more chaotic than that. The electrons are more kind of just like held in suspension kind of thing. Instead of talking about, this is where the electron is rotating, we talk about the probability of where an electron might be, because those orbits don't really actually happen at all, and etc., etc. But the idea of the organic compound is that it's based on this strong connection between carbon and hydrogen molecules. So that's what the word organic means. Orange juice is an organic compound, as is the gasoline that you put in your car, so long as it's unleaded. as well as most of the plastics that we have around us, these are all organic things. And you're going to say, wait, I thought organic meant natural. Okay, maybe you did, but you were wrong. That's not what organic means. Okay? Maybe it does in a colloquial sense, but when you're talking about chemicals, it specifically refers to the CH bond, right? Maybe an intuitive way to understand it is to consider the term natural gas. Well, it's natural, therefore it must be organic. Actually, that's true in this context. Natural gas is an organic compound, but it's maybe not what. I mean, when I draw your attention to it, then you'll see that makes sense, right? Even though all I'm really actually doing is tricking you with language. So what is organic farming then? Well, now that we know that organic refers to chemicals that have the CH bond in them, or that are carbon-based specifically, we can talk about organic farming as farming that uses organic pesticides. Now, just because a pesticide is made out of carbon and hydrogen, as opposed to, lead or nitrogen is kind of. I think that some definitions of organic actually include nitrogen, as well as oxygen. But a chemical compound that included chlorine, for example, that would be definitely not organic, right? And we know that chlorine is bad for you, but we also know that water is bad for us, and water, well, if we drink it, it's bad. If we swallow it, if we drink it, it's good for us. If we swallow it, it's bad for us, right? Did I just say water? Well, talk about a ridiculous example. Cut. No, I don't do that. I just keep going. Okay, so we know that there's lots of organic compounds. Some of them were dropped, in fact, in Vietnam, and some of them were used in gas chambers in the Third Reich. We know that there's plenty of organic compounds that are very, very bad for us. They can kill us pretty much on contact. Anything that's acidic, that has a very low pH level, would be very bad in that context as well. Explosives. You can come up with all kinds of organic compounds that are horrible for human health. They can get stuck into the water supply, and that don't go away, etc., etc. All the same problems that you would associate with pesticides will also occur with organic pesticides. So, why is it that people want to promote organic pesticides? And I know that I've lost a lot of people. They won't even acknowledge the term organic pesticide because they don't understand what organic means. And we went through that. I will refer you back to the beginning of this rant. Okay? But why is it that people want to push for organic pesticides over non-organic pesticides? And you have to keep in mind that a lot of conventional farms may use mostly organic pesticides and just use a small amount of non-organic pesticides for targeted applications, meaning that in actual practice, the differences between the pesticides in a conventional farm and an organic farm are going to be broadly fairly minimal, right? But why is it that people, The biggest reason is that it's a good marketing scam. There's big companies that want to sell you organic foods, which are the same as the non-organic foods in any nutritional or functional sense, but they want to charge you 2 or 3 times as much for them. If you read the UN documents around the UN's recommendations for organic farms in the developed world, the logic is not that it's better for the environment, or that it's better for it's less carcinogenic or any of these other unproven claims. You wouldn't see claims like that at the UN because the UN is a science-based organization. Rather, the claims that you see at the UN have to do with it generating more income. So what they do is they say, okay, developing country, you need to get as much money out of trade as you can, so why don't you do this organic? That way you can charge, the rich bastards in the West 3 times as much money. And it's easy to empathize with that. I mean, we're rich, they're poor. How do they get as much? I mean, I'm not going to criticize them for that. But if we're going to look at the situation, from a sustainability perspective, we have to understand the recommendations before we go bandying them around. It is true that the UN does recommend organic farming for developing nations, but the reason is because it's more profitable. And that's the reason why you see big companies move in that direction. The other reason is that there's a real activist hate on towards some of the companies that make the pesticides, and I mean there's lots of reasons for that. If you've got a hate on for Monsanto or for Dow Chemicals, it's not hard to come up with the reasons why. I mean, you've got the big explosion in Bhopal, where you've got the patenting of the seeds. There's lots of reasons to hate these bastards. I don't disagree with you. But let's keep the science real, okay? And what you see a lot in the activist community is guilt by association, right? These companies do this and it's terrible, so therefore everything we do should be in opposition to them, without really taking the time to actually look at what it is that you're proposing, the actual validity of the science that you're presenting, and etc. and etc. I'll leave the GMO rant to a different point. I don't see any logical reason why anybody should be afraid of GMOs. Nobody has ever proposed to me a mechanism in which they would be, in which your body would treat them any differently than non-GMO foods. Your stomach is a giant pit of acid. It breaks everything up to its constituent components. I can't think of the slightest reason why your body would care if what you're eating is modified by humans or not. Nobody's been able to answer that. Like, why would you think it should be dangerous? It's easy to agree that there have not been trials. It would take a very long time to do those trials, right? So it's easy to agree with that. That, okay, we're the experiment, sure. It's a lot harder to come up with a hypothesis as to why you think there's concern. I mean, I could argue that, it has not been disproven that there are jaguars in this specific area of suburban Canada, right? And so every time I go to this region, I need to acknowledge that nobody has ever disproven the existence of jaguars here. As another to come up with a reason why I would think that there might be jaguars there. And so the whole argument is stuck in this logical problem. It's created a problem, or it's created a solution without a problem. I like I say, I'm not doing this now. I'll do this some other time. But I can't for the life of me think of any reason why GMOs ought to be dangerous. And before you can convince me that they are, you need to convince me why they should be. Right? Before I have any sort of concerns or I acknowledge that your fears are in any way justified, and the whole meddling with nature thing, it doesn't. I don't think that nature is that I don't see any sanctity in nature, right? It's just a bunch of chemicals, and if we understand how the chemicals work, then there's no fear in rearranging them. If you wish to provide a rational fear for me to have, you have to suggest to me ways that those rearrangements might be dangerous. Saying we haven't tested every possible possibility, I mean, it's a fear of the unknown, right? That's what it reduces to ultimately, is a fear of the unknown, which is just ultimately pure ignorance, right? But the whole thing is stemming out of that. Like I say, I'm not. I don't. I can. I can agree with you on some level if you think that you need to take these companies down, because there is a certain aspect of their business models that are borderline, are, questionably evil, depending on how you define the term evil. But I think it's really important that you keep the science real, because you're never going to convince someone like me unless you actually know what you're talking about. And if you're not trying to convince people like me, or people that are smarter than me, then all you're doing is building an army of ignorant fools. And there's no positive endpoint in that. If you want to raise an army of idiots, you might see people like me actually take the side of the state and saying, you're dangerous. So let's keep the science real. If we're going to talk about organic farming, let's just make sure that we know what it means. And if we're going to advocate for laws regarding things surrounding organic farming, we should certainly know what it means before we do that. And that's just not being done. Alright, so that's that. I'll get back to those.